Well, how about a little food for thought? Um, I deal with aftermarket parts that people put on their saws for various reasons. One of the biggest is muffler covers and air filters. And I got this saw in, and I'm not dissing anybody in this. Whoever makes these filters, I do know who makes them. It's the American dream, make some money, right? Uh, that's what that's what it's all about, making a little money. And the same with the muffler covers. It's fine, you're making a product, you're selling a product, and you're making some money, and that's awesome. But there's always a but, Is it? Did you buy that part and put it on your saw to increase its reliability, its longevity, or its performance? What are you asking that of that part? And there's not really very many single bolt-on parts that truly give you a performance boost. If we put a great big carburetor on that saw, is it going to increase its performance? Highly doubtful, because it's oversized and it will cause you all kinds of other running issues. And what are you using the saw for? That's the other thing. Are you using it on a mill? Are you weekend wood cutter? You're cutting enough wood to heat your house? Or are you a production logger using that saw every single day? And these are all things that, everybody's got to think about on their saw, and it's their saw, and how they run it and how they use it. And, that's what I talk about when I say, well, the difference of the use of the saw. What are you going to use the saw for? And everybody says, well, cutting wood, obviously. Yes, I get that. But here's this saw. And it's brand new, a 462 stihl, brand new. And he's put this air filter on here. And I get it, somebody is claiming that this is so much better than the stock filter, and the stock filter lets dirt through, and all this kind of stuff that, isn't all necessarily true or false. But it always creates another issue, So this saw's been here, sitting in a box for approximately a month. And it's brand new. It's been started and ran, but it's new. How much? It's probably extreme, very, very little, Maybe he just made a couple cuts with it and he sends it to me and wants it ported, and I do that, that's what I'm being paid to do, is port saws. And not so much about what this video is kind of about, but so you can see the back of the video, and it is just extremely saturated with oil, right? And I've taken the filter off. I took the clamp off, so it's just sitting on there right now. But this whole side, I started to clean it up before I realized where the oil was coming from. And this whole side of the saw is all full of oil. The whole bottom's full of oil. And it's brand new, nice, clean saw, other than all this oil. And so the filter is, grossly over oiled. And this creates an issue, because all this oil runs down inside of the air box. It's all over around the switch. And eventually, you're going to go cut some wood with this, and there's going to be a whole lot of fine sawdust down there. And it won't take long for the switch not to work because of the oil and sawdust buildup. And we have a couple other issues with this, This filter is not very deep, right? And they take the the spit back baffle off and throw that away, because who needs that, right? That's just air interruption, right? But it's not. It's the baffle's there to stop and control the amount of spit back, right? Well, without it, right, you get spit back fuel through here, and with the original filter, it would soak the paper and whatever and kind of destroy the filter. Well, that same thing's going to happen with this. That gas is going to spit back, soak into this filter, wash the oil out of it. All the oil's going to run and drip out of it. It's all going to end up down here in this mess. You kind of see where I'm going here with one issue causes another issue, or you're trying to fix one issue, but you created another problem, you know? And so the other thing is, you know, the back of this filter fits right up tight to the back of the cover. And you can see the oil in there. You know, I get it in the light just right. There's oil running all over the place here, dripping off the back of the cover. And, you know, I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but, you know, it just depends on how I get it in the light. So, you know, the whole back of the filter is plugged by the cover. So it only gets air through the sides, right? And then I had another one from another guy that he took the back of the cover and he cut a hole back here, right? So that this kind of stuck through a little bit, right? To get more usage out of the filter. Okay, this is a air injected, or whatever you want to call it, system on this saw. So now with the hole in the back of the cover, you're no longer utilizing this air injection, okay, or any hole in the cover. So this goes back quite a few years, but Johnsrud first came out with their turbo saws, right? And it's this air injection type thing, or Husky calls it air injection, clean air system, whatever you want to call it. And Johnsrud was sued by another manufacturer because it was, they didn't feel that it was a true turbo, and they couldn't use the turbo name. And they went to court over this, and the courts decided the definition of a turbo is any device that produces over 2 pounds of boost. Okay? And Johnsrud won their case because it does produce over 2 pounds of boost. So if you could have cut a hole in your cover and put this filter on there, your turbo no longer works because it's just pushing the air out around the filter. Okay? So now, in essence, you've removed your turbo from your saw and reduced your performance over a thought that this is a better air filter. It filters air. Of course it does. Absolutely it does. That's not what this video is about. It's not about this is the wrong way of doing things or whatever. This is about choices of what you're using the saw for, and some of the, I would call, side effects of it, you know, all of this mess. And so yeah, the customer here has over-oiled the filter, okay? And I can educate him on that. That's fine. That's not a problem. Excuse me. But the issue is that how much oil do you put on this filter? And then the spit back, washing it off. How long is it going to last before the fuel washes and washes that oil out of the filter, and it's then now a dry filter. And we all know a dry foam filter doesn't work very well. It all that fine dirt migrates through there. And then the guys say, well, if you keep your chain sharp, you don't have all the fine dust. Yeah, that's true and false. The wood fiber all cuts much cleaner when the chain is sharp, but you still have bark. If you're in dry summer conditions, you still have some kind of other dirt materials flying around. And then, does it really matter whether this is foam or paper? I don't have the original filter for it. I'd, just throw it up there and kind of talk more in depth of the paper type filters. And everybody says, well, we're changing the filter because, it doesn't filter as well. How much dirt do you think that this thing is pulling through this motor? I've got saws that have 3,000 hours on them, have always ran with a stock paper filter, and have never been rebuilt. The filters, the manufacturers are spending a lot of money on testing stuff and coming up with materials that work with the least amount of maintenance. And they do that. So, now we have this issue. And again, no spit back. And then this fits completely tight right up against the carburetor, and it interrupts the airflow, how the air is flowing into it, right? There's no hollow in here to mount to anything. It's just pushing. You can see where it pushes on the little. This is open to the carburetor, the diaphragm side of the carburetor. So I don't know. There's always something that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And again, I guess it really depends on what your final end use of this stuff is, but why spend extra money on stuff that's not going to do what you really think it's going to do? And I've tested these foam filters in the past, and we've gotten like a tenth of a second or a hair more maybe on a cut. Maybe a 10-second cut, you get a tenth of a second or something like that. Improvement on this filter, and a tenth of a second is, virtually nothing. But in the winter, when it gets cold, the oil in these is so stiff and so thick that we lose almost a half a second. So, now in the winter, cold weather, it decreases performance as well. Where a paper filter is constant, a dry type filter. So, I don't know. I'm not trying to diss anybody on this. I'm just trying to educate people of, really think about what you really want out of it. Is this foam filter going to make this saw last longer for the average Joe who's cutting his yearly supply of wood? Probably not. There'll be some other issues that you're going to have just because the saw sits around so much before this. But this is going to cause, in a short time, a switch issue. This switch ain't going to work. It's going to get full of sawdust, oil, goopy sawdust that's going to really mess with the switch controls of this saw in a short amount of time. So now your maintenance is increased, even, more than even just cleaning an air filter, if you're going to have all this oil pouring around. And you're making matters worse instead of better, in my mind. Especially for like high production logging. God, the saw is just a hammer, you run it, you abuse it, you use it, and when it's done, you throw it away and you buy a new one because you've made your money with it in the first week. It's paid for. If it's not, you're doing something wrong. So, you know, you get 6 months or a year out of a saw that was paid for in a week. What difference does it make? You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And a homeowner that's just going to run it for, you know, 10, 15 face cord of wood a year, it's going to last him 20 years. You won't be able to buy parts for it before it's wore out. That's very common on saws. You know, how many 041s, 031s are out there? How many 266 Huskies or 272 Huskies and stuff you can't buy parts for anymore? 038 Stihls, and you know, that stuff is still out there and still in good shape and still running, but the parts availability is getting, you know, harder and harder and harder. And the thing is not wore out because it just wasn't used that much. And is the filter going to save you anything in the long run? You know, if that thing hasn't paid for itself by the time it's wore out, you know, you're doing something wrong. And how many saws just get smashed? You know, they're run it over with the skater, the truck, the tractor, long before they ever, or drop a tree on it, long before they ever get wore out. And it's just kind of barking up the wrong hill here by creating more issues. And I don't even I have no idea what these things cost, and I don't care. And these are the reasons why I don't recommend all this aftermarket type stuff. It's not enough of an improvement to warrant the hassles of the side effects of all the other issues that this one especially is going to cause. So, I don't know. You guys can comment, tell me what you think. But that's where I'm at on it. And I don't know, you know. Tell me what your thoughts are. What the hell? We'll have a discussion sometime and we'll go from there. Have a good one.